Oh, you want? Hi.
Welcome to Real Talk with Jill and Tia. You can see sometimes the technology on this end doesn't quite sync up right.
I know. And I feel like my internet is slow today. But we're here. We're
We
here.
are
And
here.
we are still buzzing from the Leadership Summit.
We are, and I'm happy to see that. Like, good morning, Elena. Good to
Good
see you.
morning. Good morning. Yes, please put in the chat. Hello.
Yeah, this is the thing that we always love. And at the summit, everyone was amazing,
Yeah.
dropping in who joined and where they were joining from. It was so fun to see like all these comments just
Yes,
coming up.
engagement was amazing. Engagement
Yeah.
was amazing. I loved it. It's one of my favorite parts around the summit is just hearing people or seeing people talk and engage, and even the relationships that have come outside of the summit, people taking relationships that they even built within that time. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot
Mhm.
to unpack, and super excited about kicking off that first leadership summit and then into the future, right? Because we have a lot coming up too.
We do. And, I think I know there's people wearing multiple hats just like we do. And
Hmm.
so that's why I'm glad that we're doing this, because just sharing those perspectives of things that like we learn, but also really like giving a space here for you, our audience, to share some of your aha moments or themes that you heard. That's what we're capturing today, a little bit about that. And part of it is because as we think about the 2026 summit,
Hmm.
we're kind of molding and shaping what that's going to look like.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
Oh, yeah,
wherever
wherever you
you
are.
are.
Good point.
Yes, yes.
Yep. We certainly found even last week, we had people, it was amazing, from not only just across North America, but joining from other places and registrations from other
Hmm.
countries. And
Hmm.
that's pretty exciting. Stay tuned because we will have the recordings available soon. They're just kind of getting all their little, put into pieces so that you don't have the full 4 hour video all in one.
Yes, yes, definitely. You can take it in bite sizes, if you need to as you're watching it.
Yeah,
So we're excited about
absolutely.
that.
And if you have not been here with us on Real Talk before, welcome. Thank you for
Hello.
joining us.
Hmm.
If you want to know more about what Catalyst Food Leaders does and who we are and what problems we solve, you can check all of that out online.
Hmm.
Really, we're here to help shape the future of food. And we're doing it like here, one conversation at a time, with one person at a time, one leader at a time,
Yes, yes.
one company at a time.
Mhm, mhm. And that was really our whole message behind the Leadership Summit is how do we advance everyday leaders doing this work, right? And driving those, extraordinary results. Because
Yeah.
ultimately when we are stronger leaders and we can show up authentically, right? We're empowered, we're confident, we have the leadership skills, we're able to do better work, really, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're with us, like Elena, I know you were able to be at the summit with us last
Mhm,
week. I'm
mhm.
wondering, what was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah.
Like, if you're out there, like, drop that in the comments. We'd love to know, like, what was that for you? Because
Yeah.
for us, really a big part of putting the summit on was that, we see this, right? We grew up in the food industry.
Mhm.
We know it's hard. We see
Mhm.
gaps. We see the challenges that come up, not just today,
Yeah.
but today's when we've decided we're making change in that. But the things, even when we keep talking a lot about culture, and
Yeah.
culture is not being talked enough with leadership as the framework.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is really a fascinating space because you can't change culture if you're not changing leaders.
Mm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that to me is like the impetus of like, I hope what people capture, but then I'm really curious what were some of the big takeaways that people had.
Yeah. One thing that stood out to me is just this connection to business, right? The connection to getting work done. I feel like a lot of times, and I mean, we're even guilty in the food safety culture space where we
Mhm.
spend so much time saying, oh, if we want people to behave in this way, we need an SOP or we need insert some type of process or some type of documentation or paperwork. And that is important, right? Like I think about that as the food safety of the food safety culture, right? Like we need that. Otherwise, it's not food safety culture, right? But we miss just the people side of things. And exactly what you're saying, in order to accomplish that, you have to have strong leaders, right? You have to have leadership skill development and nurturing a part of your overall development of your people. And recently I've just been reading things out there, specifically in the food safety culture space, and even the solutions that people bring forth around, like, oh, you want to move this part of your food safety culture, it still goes back to processes versus like, how are you equipping your leaders to deal with behavior change, right?
Yeah.
Dealing with conflict, dealing with influencing, right? Like those things, it's like the solutions to move forward just goes back to being so technical. And it's just a miss in our industry right now. And I feel like at the summit, the people that were on the panel, really our panelists, really talked about how in their careers and with their teams, focusing on the leadership skills that they have and their people have been really impactful with moving results forward, right? And moving their outcomes forward.
Yeah.
To me, it was just like, I know it. I feel it. We talk about it all the time. We talk to people, but to like hear them talk about it in their own words, in their own stories, and some we haven't even heard before,
Oh,
right? Like was just like, oh, that just makes so much sense. And to see it in real time, I feel like was fantastic during the summit.
it was. It actually reminds me when Dom talked about tough love.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think even when we think about leadership or being in, a lot of our audience, if you're in, here with us, many of you have food safety quality backgrounds because that's where we have spent a lot of our careers, and you're part of our community. We love it. But I also know that tough love, like that I didn't take that on when I was leading as much as I needed to. And I don't mean necessarily with people, but I'm thinking like taking the tough road. Because
Yeah.
it was easier to think this logical process of, if I want to influence behavior, like you said, I just put in an SOP. I put in a new tool or a new system that I think is going to drive compliance to a behavior
Yeah.
versus understanding that like that was only that didn't work.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's only
It
part
only
of
got part of the way. And so I love that you bring that up about the panelists. Like they showed that there is no substitution for leadership.
it. Right.
No
Yes.
matter how technical we are, no matter how skilled we are, no matter how much of an expert we are in our area, there's still no substitute for the leadership skills.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I'm going to say skills because yes, some of the feedback we got was fantastic, where they said it felt like when you talked about leaders, even though we prefaced it was individual contributors and people with formal
Mm-hmm.
titles,
Mm-hmm.
that it kind of leans and feels more like formal titles, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's for
It's
everyone.
not. It's not. And I feel like that's one of the things that even as we I mean, we've been saying over these years, but we'll continue to say, right, is that each of us, it's almost critical, right, for each of us to see ourselves as leaders, and organizations who actually see each person as leaders, like actively and intentionally let their people know that you don't have to be directly managing someone to be a leader in the organization. Organizations who take on that message see better business results through leadership because each person believes they are responsible for leading others, for leading themselves, for leading projects, right? And that means they need these leadership skills.
Yeah. Well, and even just yesterday, we were talking with someone who said, their company, they have a direct report, and their company was like, we don't feel like you have enough direct reports or influence to invest
Mm-hmm.
in you right now. They
Yes.
were like, what? I've been asking to improve on these skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so even helping those around us, helping them understand what skills we're looking for and how we're using them is
Yeah.
so important, because otherwise, once again, there's so much of this traditional vision of what leadership means and
Mhm.
who it includes and not includes.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's not embracing everybody as a leader all the time,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
definition that some are using.
Right, exactly. Which is unfortunate because it's like if those people who you felt like, oh, well, they don't manage anyone, or maybe they don't have a large team, so you don't need it. If you gave those people the right skills to do their jobs, it's just amazing how much more effective they can be at it.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can pop this up. We don't usually use this feature. Let's see if this works.
Yeah.
Elena, you have this fantastic comment in here. So often, we talk about the working in silos, or, we all have probably, small circles of people around us that we might be like, have you ever felt this? Have you ever seen this? But I think your comment here really captures a lot of this, that as leaders,
Yes.
we have similar experiences. As humans, we have similar
Mhm.
experiences. We're more alike than different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so true. And when we think about too, like even the leaders we complain about, right? Many times it's not because they don't know what they're talking about, they don't have the technical background, or many times it's not that. It's things exactly what you're saying, Elena, around like, do they have clear communication, main point messaging? Do they have EQ, can connect with people, right? Can influence. Like those are the things we remember in need, right, in our people in order to move forward. Because if it only took technical knowledge, right, like there's like so many issues we would not have because we know the solve. I mean, in food safety, we talk about all the time, micro outbreaks, listeria, salmonella, like we have the technology, we have the people knowledge, we have all of those things to prevent, to capture, to solve. But if that was the only thing, right, I probably would have a six pack from working out, right? From like doing what I know takes to have abs, but I don't because I'm human, right? I'm human, and that behavior just hasn't changed for me. But that's what we're dealing with, right? Where we have the knowledge, we have the information, but it actually takes these leadership skills to motivate and move people forward.
It does. Yeah. So
Hmm.
I'm curious, like, if anybody else out there, like, kind of like Elena did, is there anything that stood out to you, or a theme?
Yeah.
Even anything that surprised you about the day?
Mm. Mm.
Did anything surprise you, Tia?
Surprise. I would say I wasn't really surprised by anything. I really fell more into like the aha moments of
Mm.
like, ooh, or maybe, ooh, I haven't thought about wording it in that way. Or like it was brilliant the way, like, I mean, just remembering even the way Melva spoke. Like, ooh, that was really good to think about, right? How leadership flows across functions, and how you think about teams in a different way, where it wasn't really surprising for me, but more around, um, ooh, ooh, I like that. I like the way that was said, or that was presented. It's just a different way of thinking,
Mhm.
right? That taps into many different types of brains, and I felt like that was impactful to me.
Yeah, that just like we always talk about, just the we may be saying the same thing with the same intent, but just the
Mhm.
way our words are pieced together, or our perspective, is so important to have out in the world, because that can connect with someone that it wasn't connecting with before,
Right.
or it can
Yes.
make it like, you're like, yes, that's it. It's closer to what I'm thinking, feeling, understanding. And
Mhm.
that's why the communication part is so important.
It is. And one of
I
the
wish
reasons
I
why we wanted to do the summit, right, is to bring people's voices together, on this topic that just doesn't get a spotlight enough, right? And we hope to shine a spotlight on it more and more, right, over the years through Catalyst. Obviously, we're passionate about it, but the summit just allowed us to bring together those people that's also passionate about people, right,
Yeah.
and building people so that we can hear different perspectives, different
Mhm.
ways of saying leadership is important, right?
Well, and I think just the different pieces, like, one thing that I don't know if it surprised me, but it was such a fun part. Like, I hoped that we would create an experience where people were like, yeah, this is it. I was really blown away. There were moments where the screen was just full of emojis coming up.
Yes,
And
yes,
I'm so grateful to this community, to our, the people that are around us and in this network with us who showed up. One,
yes,
to say this is important, that we do need to talk about it more, but then also to be there to be like giving all these, hearts and clapping
yes,
hands to our panelists,
yes,
because, right, it feels good. It just feels good.
yes. It does. And I mean, we also wanted this to be a space of connection,
Mhm.
right? And when people engage, you're more likely to be connected with one another. One of the reasons we encourage engagement in like on Real Talk or even in our community and through our summit is because the more we engage, the more we build relationships and
Yeah.
connections with one another. And we know that in this industry, that's important, right? That's important.
Yeah. And, Elena, you kind of are hitting on something that was one of my aha moments. Your
Yeah.
comment was fresh perspectives on foundational leadership fundamentals.
Hmm.
And one of the things that stood out to me, which I even commented on LinkedIn today about,
Yeah.
was how much conversation there was about asking for feedback.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
To me, that was amazing because, we recognize that Tia and I are not crafting up leadership principles.
No, they exist. They
These
exist.
are already things that exist. What we hope to do is create a framework around elevating them to the point where we go, yes, we need to lean in more. And that was one of those moments where people were like, feedback, whoa, like I never thought about asking my direct reports, and I'm going to insert people around me
Yes.
for directly for feedback. Did
Yeah.
that surprise you at all, Tia, that people were like, whoa, hold the phone here. Tell us more about how you're doing this.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things that even when, like you said, when we think about like leadership fundamentals or the basics of leadership, there's many times, especially for people that have been around leadership, like actual like leadership competencies, leadership skills, have been in that space for so long, you forget that people may not know or haven't
Mm.
practiced in a long time leadership skills, right? And I mean, I'm sure there's some that we can point to that we haven't done it in a
Oh,
while
yeah.
because we haven't needed to, right? We just haven't needed to, or maybe we just
Forgot.
forgot about them, right? Forgot
They've
about
fallen out of our routine of doing.
them. Right, exactly. And so sometimes we forget, and we forget just even as business owners, right, that there are people out there that's struggling right now that haven't clicked on that, like, hey, you need to ask for feedback, right?
Mhm.
And not even just ask for feedback, you need to be able to receive that feedback in a way that's positive. And sometimes we just forget that, hey, I can ask my direct report for feedback. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to just be my manager giving me feedback. I can ask my direct report, I can ask my peers, I can ask people outside of my company for feedback. I have all of these avenues that I can ask for feedback and practice giving feedback, right? To maybe even my manager, right? Which
Mhm.
people don't think about. I need to give feedback to my manager. Like that is so important. It's important for growth, but we just don't do it because we don't think to do it or we're scared to do it, right? We're scared to ask for that feedback. Because if I
Did
get
you see
feedback,
my post? That's what I put in there.
that scared of
That
feedback.
the first time I asked, I was actually nervous
Mm-hmm.
because it's not that I thought I was a horrible leader or a bad leader, but I also was like, I've never asked. I have no clue. I had no clue.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been intentional about, am I being the best leader I can be for this person? So
Mhm.
I knew, I think I inherently knew that there was going to be some feedback that was going to be hard. So I was really nervous.
Yeah, avoiding it. Like
But the one
scared
that I
of it.
shared today was, I remember, oh, so lucky I had, yeah. It's good that humans, our natural state is kindness,
Yeah.
because the feedback that we had used was start, stop, continue. I
Mm.
like that because I think it's easy to kind of frame those three things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you say, give me feedback, like, on what?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I had someone who, so my perspective was, as I'm putting things together for the team or for others, like, hey, can you send me this report, or could you send me some data on this, or where do I find this? And they would send it, and I'd be like, great, right?
Yeah.
I knew they had so many emails that I didn't always, reply back like, hey, thanks. Because I was like,
Yeah.
their inbox is so full. And one of the first, at the first feedback with one of my direct reports, they said, I just don't know that you even get it.
Oh.
Like,
Mhm.
because I was like, oh, I don't want to fill up your inbox. And they were like, no, that's okay. I would rather have a receipt message, like acknowledging that you got what I had and that was what you needed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I didn't realize that my not wanting to fill up your inbox was interpreted as like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yes.
And all they asked for was, do you see me? Does what I sent matter to you?
Right. Right.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh. It was the
Yes.
easiest thing to fix. But had I
Right.
not asked, each time that happened, they probably would have had this little twitch of irritation.
Exactly. Right.
Like,
Right.
she keeps asking and then she doesn't even say thanks.
Right, exactly. And then
Ugh.
that's the story, right? That's being fed, fed, fed when it's as simple as I just need to know that you got it. Right. And that it's what you wanted.
Yeah. So that's a long story, kind of down the little track, the rabbit hole of, I think, these aha moments where, like you said, kind of coming back to these foundational pieces is so important, because I'm curious how many people on your task list in
Mm-hmm.
your standard works that have these foundational things actually built in,
Yeah.
like giving feedback, asking for feedback,
Mm-hmm.
providing appreciation,
Mm-hmm.
all the things, like
Yeah.
reflect on how my week went.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I love your story. It reminded me too of Melva's story around feedback where she crosses her arms and, you know, and
Yes.
her was it her manager or someone she was talking to was like, I feel like you don't receive feedback well because of that. And then she's like, it's cold in here, right? So like just even the perspectives of that, I think that's why it's really important to ask for feedback, is
Hey.
because you won't know the other person's thoughts, perspectives, or any of those things. I'm the type of person that's like, if you're not saying anything negative to me, then I don't think anything's wrong, right? Like I'm going down that path, so I have to intentionally say, hey, what can I improve? Or when I was living in corporate America and thought about like how do I want to move to different levels and
Mhm.
grow, I started structuring my feedback around, hey, I want to be this position, or I want to do this type of work. Where do you feel like I should grow over the next year to help me get there? So
Mhm.
like even stuff like that will bring people out to say, oh, I think you need to focus here, because when you do these type of projects, I don't see this. It gives me some insight into, okay, those are thoughts you've been thinking, but haven't just said to me, because I mean, you just didn't give the feedback, right? But because I asked, now you're giving it to me. And then to say, okay, yes, I want to follow up with you, or I have this meeting coming up. I would love for you to give me feedback from that. And then it just continues, right? And then people give you that feedback. But recognizing who you are, right? Of I'm kind of fearful of feedback, or no news is good news, or whatever. I mean, wherever you are, just knowing that that is your perspective on it, and other people might not share that.
Yeah.
So it's like knowing, it's that self-awareness, right? To say,
It
okay,
is.
I can fall into the no news is good news and keep ticking, even though that is not what other people feel. Other people are not saying, well, if you're hearing no news, you're doing good. No, they want you to ask. for feedback or would appreciate that at least.
Mm-hmm. Which
Mm-hmm.
is fascinating because as we prep for real talk, I have a couple questions for us to think about. And T, I don't even know if you looked at them, but one of them for wrap up was like, what do you hope attendees, have taken away? Like, what have they
Yeah.
learned and taken back to their job
Mm-hmm.
after
Mm-hmm.
being at the summit?
Yeah. I hope people really thought about what they're facing at work and how leadership can play a big piece in that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is a challenge that they have going on or, firefighting, like a bunch of challenges that come up, right, to kind of ruin your day or your week. Whatever it is that you are struggling with, I hope that people were able to see that if you take a step outside of the technical, assuming that you're technically strong, right? Like if you're dealing with listeria, but you know nothing about listeria, okay, like yes, you need to take some technical courses on that, right? And kind of learn about it, or at least read up on it and get a resource for it. But if you are technically sound and you're trying to get things done, to take a step back and really think about how can being a better leader actually help you solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Yeah.
I hope people at least took a moment either during or afterwards to think about, like, okay, how can leadership play a piece here? Either myself or my team or my senior leaders or, whoever it happens to be, how can that help you actually solve your problem?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, even, people that are joining us today, like what did they hope they would take away? And then what did they?
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Mm-hmm.
think, what I looked at was I was blown away that we had like 420 people register.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that shows that there are people that are like, we need something.
Yeah.
What is that
Yes.
something? And I'm glad that they were like, leadership is part of the something we need. Let's be in that space.
Yeah.
And that I sometimes am a bit challenged because I love to bring people in and like create space for us, the safe space to share and learn and like here in our community and in our cohorts. But I also have, this side where I really want people to walk away and know what we do here at Catalyst and how we can help.
Yeah.
Because I think when I sat in that space, being a leader in food companies, without knowing how to
Mm-hmm.
get the support, I didn't even know it was available. I
Right.
didn't know where to
Yeah.
find it.
Yes.
And I get in this space where I feel a little like you see me squirmy because, we want to change lives. And I mean, that sounds so cliche, but we also know we can't do that without talking about what we do. And I always am sensitive about, like, I don't want us to feel commercially.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
also want to make sure people are like, I know what Catalyst does. I know how they can solve things. And obviously, we do want to help you solve those things. That's what we're here
Mm-hmm.
for.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hope people take things away, I hope they leave with this, gosh, I wish I could do something more. And I know a solid partner who can
Yeah.
really help me with that.
Yeah. Jill, I feel like that is so important. And even, I mean, it's one of the reasons we started Catalyst is because we've been at organizations that value leadership, right? And we've been through leadership courses and they've talked with the operations team and got them going and like those type of things. And they have been, the ones that I've been in, they've been great. The part that's missing is that it has nothing to do with how we run a food facility. It's like it's and literally I'm in the audience. Like I remember a leadership development sort of like, all week thing that managers went to. And I remember in that leadership like week or whatever, I knew I wanted to do this type of work in the future. As a matter of fact, I reached out to someone at that organization, was like, I want to learn more about what your organizations do. So that's how impactful that session was. I just love the way that they talked about things. But I was literally in the audience talking with managers on like, oh yeah, this relates to like, what do you think about this? And then, some managers like, I was like, well, this relates to like when you're in processing and this happens and this happens. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that. Literally, I'm doing that in the audience. And it's one of those things that's like, as we have built Catalyst, and obviously I didn't even know Catalyst wasn't a thing at the time, and I hadn't even thought about doing this from like a food perspective. But once we started talking and started building Catalyst and really made the decision that we're going to stick with food because of the relatability and the practical solutions, that was an aha for me, where it's like, yeah, that what was missing from those things, where we could actually relate it to working in a processing facility, working on a farm, working at a corporate location that you're not making any food, but you need to relate it to people who are working there, staying up to 2 a.m. and like all of these things. It's just a thing that's missing, I feel like, for our industry, and honestly probably other industries too. We just can't help them because we're not working
there before.
Right. But
don't ask me to come work in automotive or healthcare.
Yeah. I can tell you the fundamental leadership concepts, right? Like I can work through the leadership, but to really be able to say, this is how it can impact your team. This is how you can say this a little bit differently because of the people that you work with and the nature of our industry. That's what's impactful. That it's almost like the culture data we show, where it's like, okay, yeah, companies with like poor culture, they grow, at 10%, but the ones that actually have, relatable solutions and really being able to drive, I think that's the difference between that 10%, that 10 times growth and that 40 times growth, right? Like where you can really use these concepts.
Yeah, I think so. But that's me. And if you're listening, right, that's for me part of this like comfort zone thing. Like I want to help people. Yeah. And then sometimes moving into that space where I'm like, nudge, nudge, we can do that. Like I nudge versus being like, look, that's what we do. Because that feels too in your face. But I also don't want people to walk away and be like, I'm going to make this one tweak and it maybe solves something for this afternoon, but it doesn't help like for the next week or the next month.
Yeah.
So that was kind of part of what I was hoping people would learn and take away, one, how passionate we are, but how serious we are about this filling this space. Yeah. But also that we do it so different. I love how Melva even talked about, until she worked with an external coach, she had no clue how it could have changed her life. Yeah. And that's what I love when people are in boot camp with us or, coaching with us in our other programs, is they're like, I had no clue that this was even possible because I didn't even know what I didn't know. And I know that sounds commercially right now and I don't want to do that. But that was my experience being coached as well and going through coaching certification, that I kind of at first thought, yeah, I'll do this. And then I was like blown away because my life literally changed by doing this.
Yeah. I feel like it's even people who, when I worked with a coach, it was one of those things where it's like, I knew what needed to be done, but my coach allowed me to be like almost okay with that. And we see that through our courses, right? And we tell organizations that if a person that's coming to our leadership course, if they're not doing well, they might decide that this is not the best place for them to grow. Right? Like it has gotten so bad, which is the reason why we try to talk about being proactive, right? And proactively bringing, us in to help with those things. Because once it gets to a point, they might decide, right? And you might actually want them to decide. There's many different scenarios. But I think for me, when I got a coach, I was like at that crossroads. And I needed to I knew I needed to make a decision, but I felt like I needed, if you know me, I like knowing all pieces of the puzzle so I can make a great decision, right? But sometimes you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. Or sometimes, like, I remember my coach said, like, you have what you need. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I really do have to make a decision. And I feel like it's one of the reasons why we incorporate coaching in our, or in our programs, is because we don't want you to just take these leadership fundamentals or these leadership, or even advanced leadership skills, take them and be like, oh well, that was nice, right? Like, but I'm not going to actually use them in my life. We want you to use them, right? We want them to be life altering for you so that you can show up differently in spaces, and grow, right? Grow yourself, grow your team, grow your business.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important for us to use coaching in our programs. And the reason why we're so passionate about getting it out into the industry is because we know people will benefit from it.
Yeah, in this space. Because I always say, it used to be just for like executive leaders, or
Yes.
when people, either in high performers.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's a high performer. You just need to unleash it.
You need to unleash it, right?
Yeah.
You do. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
Jill, just hosting. We hosted, right? We moderated.
Yes.
What did you learn as a host, moderator, building our first summit? Exhausting.
I'm curious if you're out there, Elena. I could see you've probably coordinated an event like this, or I'm curious if you have, or anybody else out there. How was being the coordinator and like host different than what you maybe thought?
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I can be a detailed person. If you ask me, am I a detailed person? I'd be like, no. But I definitely can be in moments. And I think that planning this, there were only a couple hiccups, and some of them were like, wow, we've never seen this before, like the goofy slides.
Right.
Like we had all the things in place, and then all of a sudden Canva was weird with the slides. We're like, right. What? So people might have sensed that. But I think I have a much bigger appreciation because the detail, the skill, the coordination to make these events work, not just a webinar, not just like our virtual summit, but bigger events too. We put in a lot of time, and we knew we would, but it was more than I thought.
Yeah.
And me, the introvert, at the end of the day, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Like the couple days after that, I marginally worked because I was just still in exhausted mode.
Well, it's important to build in that time, afterwards. And it's funny for me, I was getting sick. So I was starting to go through some sinus stuff, and I was like, just one more day, just hold up for one more day. So Thursday too, I kind of crashed just from the sinus issues that I had going on. But it is a lot of work, right, to put on. And this was just a half day virtual event. It's like it is a lot of work putting on an event, but it's also so rewarding at the end.
Yeah.
Once it's done, it's so rewarding to see like the feedback, hear the feedback, and just know that you've made an impact on people, and that this will help make future impact, on people and organizations.
I think I'm always blown away too by not only did we have these amazing people that said yes, they all said yes. When we asked people to join us and help us, they're all like, I'm in. And I'm like, I have a little bit of this imposter. I hate using the imposter syndrome, but what did we do to deserve this amazing support from people around us?
We do have amazing.
That does blow me away because I think they're all amazing. And for them to be like, I'm in, and no hesitation. And there were some people who were like, yep, we want to be there, but I already have that day booked. The next year I want to be there. It was humbling and amazing. I'm a little teary just thinking about it.
Oh yeah. Because the support has been amazing. And until you plan an event like this, especially, this was our first sponsored event where we had some amazing, amazing, amazing sponsors. Thank you so much to Pure Bioscience and Safety Chain for being our gold sponsors, Trustwell and Saldesia for being our silver sponsors, and QA Magazine and Food Safety Tech for being our media sponsors. Like, this was our first event that even bringing on sponsorships, and just seeing the support, right, of us and our mission is definitely humbling and great, and we are super grateful. And it's one of those things that you just don't think about, especially, I mean, you all know, like we talk, you all know we're growing this business and we are a small business. Sometimes you just lose sight on, like, well, who are supporters of us, right? Who's helping us, like, even move our mission forward, because that's really how we accelerate this on what we're doing. And just to see people, right, people be a part of that is just fantastic.
It was. And even for people to articulate, like,
Mm-hmm.
the reason they're either showing up and registering or being a sponsor or being a panelist is because they believe in the mission that we have.
Yes.
And that our values align. And I just am like, dang.
Yeah.
So grateful.
Yes. Yes. We are. And we cannot thank you enough for supporting us each week on Real Talk, or through our programs, or advice, or feedback, right? Like, we're always looking for feedback. And if it's just like future events and future formats of learning, right? I'm sure you will hear about it either today or later on in our social media and through our email list and through our community, is that we have a lot coming up this year. And one of our goals was to be able to present this learning in different types of formats, because we all know we learn differently, right? Like, some people are like, I want to, like, sit through something for a day, and then I want to go off and do. And some people are like, I want to be somewhere for a week, and I want to be, like, we each have our own learning styles. And, our job, as we think about our mission and helping leaders become better leaders, right, through development of their skills, we have to be able to meet people where they are. And so we need to have these different ways of meeting people. So I feel like the summit sort of helped us kind of tap into another way that we just haven't done yet. And we can't wait to see even how it changes in the future, which we definitely have some improvements and some shifts that we know we want to make to the summit over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting caught up in the comments. Elena, thank you for commenting. I know I think there's a few other people viewing, so feel free to jump in. But
yeah,
I love that your takeaway was the change starts with us and leadership skill development is continuous. Yes. Yeah. I wish decades ago I would have realized that versus midway through my career. Oof.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this comment, Elena, the diminishing support and willingness to go the extra distance.
Oh, yeah. Say more about that one.
I'm curious kind of what that meant. But I'm also 100% agreeing with it's thrilling and exhausting with the high level of attention to detail and bringing it together. But you hit it right on the nail on the head with, it was so rewarding to see people unite and connect. Amazing. Hands down.
Agreed. And even when you talk about the engagement during the summit, like, I love seeing that, because I know people are connecting, right? Yeah. And engaging with each other. And that just makes me happy. Makes me happy.
Oh, book club May 6th.
Oh, book club. Yes. Right. Another avenue of learning, right? Yep. Another avenue of learning.
I just shared with Tia, like, last night I send you this random text because I'm like, I'm working on a calendar for the website.
Yes.
So if you go out there, you're going to see under resources, there's a calendar of events. And I don't know if I'm going to put it on the homepage yet or what. We got to talk about that. But, it's how do we help create spaces so when people are like, yep, I have some space for continuous learning right now, or for something new, to, like, good, go check the calendar. What fits?
Right.
On the comment.
Oh yeah, the comment around asking for feedback. If you hadn't asked for feedback through the email, yeah, right, yeah, that would have diminished their support, right? And most of
Oh,
it
yeah, yeah.
because they
Yes,
felt
yes,
like
thank
you
you.
didn't care, right? You weren't
Yes.
thankful, you weren't yeah.
Yeah, and it was, it was funny. That was like a floodgate.
Yeah.
Like opening that was like that was the funniest thing about the whole my worry about asking for feedback. Once I did, it's funny because it's not always the same for each person, but with that person, it was like this floodgate of like now we just got real with each other
Yeah. Yes.
in a different way. And
Yeah.
that was hands down like amazing. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that comment because
yeah,
I mean,
thank
you're
you for
absolutely right. Absolutely right.
so Tia, and I'm curious, Elena and audience,
Yeah.
what's one thing that you hope that we would do different next time?
Mm. Well, I think that one thing, especially as we for ourselves, is to think about like breaks, right? We don't know what next year is going to look like, but you know, I would, yeah, I know that there is definitely space, like even the way that we did it this year for breaks. So that I think one thing that we typically say even through our workshops, even though we build breaks in our workshops, is that if you need to go, right, like go. If you need to take
Go,
care of
yeah.
yourself, go. And we didn't really open that up for
Yeah, we didn't
people.
set that stage this time as well.
No, we didn't. So maybe that's something that we should, but also building in those breaks I think would be important, even for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yes. And
Mhm,
that
mhm.
was one of the things that we got even on our feedback form, which was
Yeah.
fantastic, where people are
Mhm.
like, I needed to step away and I missed this part, or, I needed to grab lunch, or like,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely breaks.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
what about you? What else would you say?
I loved this is why I love asking for feedback because two things that kind of stuck out for me in the feedback, which I thought was really powerful, was somebody said, "This is all fantastic, but what about for small companies?"
Mhm, mhm.
And I think, it's not that what being a leader in a big company versus a small company that it's necessarily different.
Right,
But
yeah.
I think sometimes that lens and how we navigate those relationships are different because
Mhm.
it just is, right? In a big company, usually we're kind of more singularly focused and, kind of have a very set, place where we are
Yeah.
versus after being in a small company, right? I'm like, I'm wearing hats I had no clue even fit
Mhm.
my head, and they really don't,
Yes.
but I'm there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I appreciate that feedback so that we can consider, is it a special session? Is it making sure we represent that more with the people that we
Panelists,
bring
yes,
in?
yeah, yeah.
I love that part.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
the other one was, even though we set the stage, and you did this right at the beginning, like our definition of leader is not title. It
Right.
is how you are showing up and how you are being in this space leading.
Mhm,
Now,
mhm.
we did have some feedback on that sounds great. And it talks about how I do this with my team. What about as an individual contributor?
Yeah, yeah.
So, once again, I think it's just the framework and setting up that we are being mindful to make sure that's woven in and
Mhm.
really apparent so that when because we are looking, we want to serve everyone. We do serve everyone.
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
want to make sure that you see that space and how it could look for you. And so that's something I would consider for next time.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things that we could have maybe highlighted a little bit more during the summit. Um, because I think you're right, just working in small businesses, and both of us have worked in small businesses, we've worked with startups. And what I've noticed, even from a leadership, I think this also goes back to the leadership fundamentals and the things that we that people sometimes just don't realize, right? Like these leadership skills are, I mean, they're the same whether you're in a large organization or a small organization. And I found, right, when I was in a small organization, I was able to influence more
Mhm.
because you are so connected to a lot of different things versus like in a large organization, there's so many people that you have to get on board versus like in a small organization. And so if you are in a small organization and you're listening today, like these skills can definitely be used in those spaces, in very similar way, if not the same way, on how you connect with people, because we're working in these food environments, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like even with Ryan, like small business leadership should be the same. And but I will say the difference though is that in a small organization, people around me probably haven't gotten leadership development. So you're dealing with a lot more people that don't really know how to lead, even though they are a leader by title. So there's a lot more managing up, in the organization, because they don't really have those skills, nor are sometimes they're focused on those skills because they're so focused on company growth and sales. And so I would say that's probably, maybe that's a good something to explore even this year with small businesses or people who work in those areas where really it's a lot more managing up there because of, just those touch points. And then those leaders probably haven't gone through, barely any leadership development.
Yeah, and that might depend on even small company versus like startup feel. So that could be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to explore. And I
Yeah.
love it says LinkedIn user. So sorry, I'm not sure who, but thank you for this comment too about look at me, I can show
Yeah, share it.
comments. Yeah, I can show them. Yeah, I think this just points out that like leadership fundamentals do not change. Like
Right.
being a human and showing up and supporting and loving and wanting success for others isn't different depending on where we are. But this industry, all industries move it, and I love this, different paces and the expectations of people in the business.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that really captures why, I mean, like I know I could think specifically of, and I know it's not leadership per se, but when I did Six Sigma black belt training, that
Mm-hmm.
was great training, people from automotive, and they'd be like, well, just do this. We're like, mm-mm,
That's not
that
happening.
does not work here in food. Are you nuts?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And
I
I'm
think that,
sure this person sees it too, right? Like it's different across because that pace, that expectation, the expectation of the business. But I even love the expectation of people.
yeah.
Expectation of people is different working at, even working at like food manufacturing versus food service. We're just lucky enough that we've had, between the both of us, we've had experiences in all of these areas in food. But I would imagine if we hadn't, we probably would look for someone that had that experience even in food service, right? Because that's different because of the pace and the people expectations. I mean, I think that's big.
Yeah. And Kanta, we know you missed the summit, and that's okay. We love that you're here and in this space with us.
Yes.
And we love your kind words. Thank you for those.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is next for us? Like we built this summit. We're super excited about it. You will see a summit next year as well. So more to come on that, I'm sure, towards the end of this year. But we do have a lot of things coming up. And it is building off of the momentum of leadership drives culture that ultimately drives our business results. That's what we're focused on.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head about this year. We really took a step back and said, how, like, people love our programs, but we also know we want things that are scaled for where people are at and what they need right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the summit was one of them. We have the peer circles starting in June, which I'm really excited because it's like these bursts of togetherness, solving things, supporting in a whole different way. Because while you have a network, when you have the accountability of I'm helping this peer in this space do something better than they've ever done before or differently, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about our peer circles, and even the other thing we have are the workshop series.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Like just looking at those between our peer circles, which you talked about, like that's about solving problems now. You have a problem, you need to solve it quickly. Those run over 4 weeks. And the goal is that you bring a problem and you solve it during that time, using your peers, using leadership skills, right? Using those things as a part of that. And then that workshop series, really just being able to break up, that time and really be able to take things and go and practice and do.
Yeah.
Come back, learn, take things, practice and do. And when we talk about those different learning styles or what people need, right? Like that's needed. And we run into people all the time where it's like, I have this problem to solve. And we know like, okay, you need to build these leadership skills over time. You definitely need that. But this is a problem that you can't wait on. That's what those peer circles are all about. It's like, I can't really even think past how I need to develop myself and my team because this fire is blazing and it's hot and we need to solve it. I think like those peer circles and the workshop series, right, is a way for people to get that information quickly, I would say, and use it right away to solve problems.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about that because it's some of the we are in that age of on demand. I need it now. Prime it to me overnight.
Yeah.
That's cool. But I think we all also value that slow and steady wins the race. And I think when it comes to leadership, once again, I wish decades ago I would have been like, let me get on I'm signing up for the marathon race because I'm slow and steady the whole time versus I'm going to go do that 5K. Let me jump in and do that 5K. And that you still can. I think my message here is you can do both. They serve different purposes.
They do, right? They do. And we're meeting you where you are right now. But, I love this. I'm going to share this even with Elena, what she said earlier, where like leadership skill development is continuous. And it's one of the reasons why we launched our enrichment, because it is about continuously, how do I learn, practice, reflect? So that's something else that I know you've been seeing a lot about. Our first group is getting together at the end of the month on April 24th. So please sign up for enrichment because that's the continuous learning, right? The learning, the practice, and learning from your peers, right? From people that's in the industry, that's working, that's dealing with similar issues as yourself.
Yeah. And bonus first, we want you to trial it. So 3 months, first 3 months are free.
Yes.
And Kanta, you hit the nail on the head of one of the other things we're doing this year is, leadership, soft skills, culture, sometimes it's squishy. And we've found that to be hard. That's a challenge, helping people understand some of the feedback from our boot campers and our program people and clients that have been with us for coaching, because usually it's qualitative.
Right.
It's much more about, I feel this has shifted in me. And so one of the challenges we do have is collecting more metrics to be able to say, here, this is what you can expect.
Right. Yeah.
Specifically from this. Granted, we already know overarching, we already know because we've been coaching for years, here are the metrics that show the outcomes you get with coaching. And how that translates to business. So I think part of it is also people recognizing those are real.
Yeah.
Those are real.
And we need to prioritize it, right? It's one of the reasons I'm excited about our peer circles and excited even about enrichment is because you're able to be a part of it and see that, right? And for peer circles, it's it's just a 4-week commitment. Once a week, right? We're getting together for 90 minutes to discuss and really start building solutions for your problems. Like that's an easy way of saying, okay, let me try to get this solved through this avenue, see if I can make some movement on it and go from there, right? It's something that's not a long commitment, but something that you can easily sign up for, get your problem solved, right? Get the insights that you need so you can move forward. And being able to show that across different avenues and have those metrics and feedback to share, that's definitely what we are building.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our hour goes fast. Woo!
It
Our
does.
wrap up went in a few different directions that I had not planned, and that's cool. We are
Mhm.
so glad you are all able to join us today, and we appreciate your comments and engaging in the conversation. Thank you so much for being here, Kanta, Ryan, Elena. There's another user. I'm sure there's others. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for the support, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
We do. So make it a great week.
Talk soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.